Everybody for turning up, and thank you for those that have joining us online. I'm John Wright. I'm the chairman for the Joint Transportation Board, and welcome to the meeting. It's now 5:30. If members have any electronic devices that need to be turned off, please do so. We don't want any rings or vibrations. If you could turn your cameras or microphones off, and obviously we will be recording this session, so if you have a problem with that, then please shout, otherwise you will be recorded for prosperity. Members accessing the meeting remotely should use their SBC or KCC laptops to participate virtually. If you join using the link on the website or on the mobile and tablet device, it's not always possible to identify you, and we may not be recorded as in remote attendance. Just a reminder that those that do attend online and who are committee members, they do not vote. You have to be present to vote. So there we go. We aren't anticipating any fire alarms. So if there is a fire alarm, there is fire exit that way and a fire exit the way you came in, but please do not use the lifts at all. I presume nobody has any need to be carried out or disabilities, etc. In which case, I can advise you that that we do have with us some officers. We have Martin Castle from KCC sitting to my left. We have Mike Knowles, Swale Borough Council's engineer, sitting to my right. And we have Billy Attaway, who is recording the meeting for us. I presume we do have others joining online. My eyesight's not that good in terms of officers. If you'd like to... We have Richard and Daniel. Richard and Daniel, right, okay. Right. The minutes of the meeting. I presume everybody has read and looked at the minutes of the last meeting held on the 2nd of December. Can I sign those on as a correct and accurate record? I'm seeing a nodding of heads. I'm not seeing anything online at all.
Sorry, Chairman. Item 2, apologies for absence.
Yep, okay. Are there any apologies for absence?
Thank you, Chair. There's apologies for absence from Councillor Rich Lehman and Councillor Simon Clark, but I've noticed that he's on live remotely. Online. Yeah.
I haven't been informed that there are any public speakers tonight. So we'll move on directly then to item 6, the informal consultation results, and I believe that's down to you, Mike.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, as the report states, this is to report the results of a recent informal consultation with residents of Belmont Road in Faversham on the proposal to extend the current residents' parking scheme to include Belmont Road. This followed a petition that was sent to the JTB in October 2024. The results of the informal consultation, of the 26 properties that we consulted, we received 12 responses, 10 supporting the proposals and 2 objecting. And based on that, the recommendation to members this evening is to proceed with the traffic regulation order. Thank you.
Okay, well, I have Julian and I have Anthony that have indicated. Any others? No? Julian.
Yeah, I think this looks your report looks very straightforward. I would suggest and like to propose that we accept the recommendation.
Anthony.
Yes, it's an overwhelmingly clear answer to the consultation. This street is a relatively narrow street, quite near to the train centre and the train station and the town centre. And there are other streets further away from the town centre that do have restrictions, so it makes a lot of sense, and I second the proposal.
Right, I have no others that have indicated. I have a proposer and a seconder. All those in favour of what is being proposed? That is unanimous. Thank you very much. Agenda item 7, informal consultation results, proposed double yellow lines, Park Road, Faversham. Over to you again.
Thank you, Chair. So this was following a previous traffic regulation order that was drafted and included a short section of double yellow lines in Park Road in Faversham. As we received objections to that original traffic order, the JTB made a recommendation that we undertake an informal consultation with residents prior to drafting any future order or prior to progressing that existing order. The informal consultation has now been completed, and we received 4 formal responses, 1 in support of the proposals and 3 objecting to the proposals. So again, based on the lack of support for the proposed double yellow lines, the recommendation in the report to members is that we abandon the proposals and don't progress with a formal traffic order. Thank you.
Councillor Hook.
Thank you very much, Chairman. This is obviously a smaller sample of responses. I would agree with the recommendation. If you look at the map, there's which is on page 18, there's 2 proposed yellow lines. One is on the west, right outside house number 1, and the other one is sort of going horizontally on the map, which is the entrance to one of the car parks of the park, the recreation ground. And I happened to be there at the weekend, and there was a very large pickup truck parked in the entrance to the recreation ground, which cars could manoeuvre around to get to the recreation ground car park. But I was concerned that a fire engine might have difficulty, and the tennis club is at that end of the park, and there's also the railway lines at that end of the park, sit just south of the park. So I agree with the recommendation in relation to the line outside number 1, i.e. not to go ahead. I was a bit concerned to see someone parking at the entrance to the car park, and I wonder if it's possible to ask not to take a decision on that tonight, and to ask the fire service if they've got a view on it at all and reconsider us at the next meeting.
I presume they're automatically asked, are they not?
They would be included in the informal consultation, yes. We send out to, we call them statutory consultees, but that does include the fire service. But I'm more than happy to approach them separately, based on the discussions this evening, to get their views and report it back to the next JTB in June, if that's considered an option.
Well, I mean, there's no rush, is there?
No.
We might as well do a full consultation rather than half a job.
Excellent.
Yeah. Okay. Yes.
Yeah, on that basis, I'm quite happy to second Councillor Hook's proposal.
Right, we have a proposer and seconder. Everybody in favour of it being progressed further with the fire brigade? Yeah. Okay, excellent. Thank you very much. Agenda item 8. Formal objection to traffic regulation order amendment 11. So, over to you again.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, this is the final report for myself this evening. This, as the report states, is to report formal objections received to our latest traffic regulation order, which was Swale Amendment 11. This included extending some existing double yellow lines in Strode Crescent in Sheerness, and which also includes removing 2 existing disabled persons parking bays outside of the church in Strode Crescent. We undertook an informal consultation with residents, which was reported to the October 2024 JTB. I believe we consulted with 101 properties and we received 2 responses, both objecting to the proposals, which were considered by members at the October JTB meeting. And the recommendation was to progress with the traffic regulation order, which we have done. We have received one formal objection to this traffic order. And based on that one objection, the recommendation in the report is to progress with sealing the traffic regulation order, but also to review the parking on the opposite side of the road, where there was previous discussion around extending the double yellow lines. So if that is considered an option, we can certainly include that in a future traffic order should the need arise. But the current recommendation is to proceed with the traffic order as advertised. Thank you.
Would any of the Sheerness members like to add to the recommendation?
It is a bit of a nightmare, Mr. Chairman, and I believe the comment from one of the ward councillors was actually a pedestrian ward councillor. So, it's bad enough. Parking is a nightmare in Sheerness. There's just not enough space. Inconsiderate parking, lorries, huge vans, etc., etc. But when it comes that pedestrians are being put in danger, I think we need to take action. So,
You'd agree with
I
the...
would support the recommendation. Thanks.
Do I have a seconder? Yep. Does he? Oh, sorry. Mike Baldock, please.
Thank you, Chair. I thought we hadn't noticed. I'm struggling to see why we're going ahead with something that has 101 people consulted, 2 respondents in the first round, 1 respondent in the second round, all objecting. There doesn't seem to be a great public appetite for this. I was just wondering why we're still progressing it. Seems like there's an overwhelming lack of interest in it.
Would you like to comment on that? I would just say probably we have a duty to look at public safety, but...
Thank you, Chair. Yes, just to clarify, really, the recommendations, or the original proposals, should I say, which warranted the informal consultation, followed a request from the local police officer that stated that there was an issue around vehicle obstruction. That was the only reason we took it forward, really. Obviously, we do take reports via the emergency services quite seriously, understandably. So hence the reason why we did progress through the informal consultation and the formal consultation. But absolutely note the comments that have been made. Thank you.
Thank you for that. Did you want to come back, Mike?
Thanks, John, but I would say no, but if the ward members support it, I'm going to go with the ward members.
Okay, thank you for that. Right, we've got a... Oh, right. Okay, Councillor Whiting.
Yeah, thanks, Chairman. I've had sort of just wearing my county council hat. I've had dozens, I would say, letters about this one, and overwhelmingly they want to keep the situation as it is and keep the disabled bays there for the church users, and what they would rather see is some decent enforcement opposite. Particularly, I understand there's a van that's been parked there for some time with a mains cable attached to it coming from a nearby house. They would like to see the situation opposite sorted out, and that the disabled bays were left where they were, so that people using the church were able to do so. The badge holders were able to do so. So. Certainly the correspondence that I've had from the members of the public is very much against putting the yellow lines down more in favour of getting the enforcement sorted out on the opposite side of the road.
Right. Do you like to come back on the enforcement side?
Thank you, Chair. I think the only comment really, as far as I'm aware, the enforcement from a parking point of view can only take place obviously where there are formal restrictions, and I think the issue is that the current double yellow lines on that side of the road run for a distance of approximately 9 metres from that junction. So I think the vehicles that are causing the issue are parking away from those double yellow lines. I can't comment on the caravan park there. I have seen that myself because that doesn't come under my side with regard to the sort of traffic regulation, order and enforcement side. But if we did kind of consider the option of extending those restrictions on the opposite side of the road and leaving the disabled bays in place, I think the main concern was around the impact on the parking capacity for residents, I think. But again, it is another option. I say it would mean I would suggest going out for a further consultation. I know we've done an informal consultation and we've now undertaken a formal consultation as part of the traffic order, but if that's deemed the preferred option, we would remove it from the current order and start again, for want of a better description. But it is an option. It is an option. Thank you.
Right. I can't see any others that have indicated. We do have...
I have my hand up.
Oh, you have... Right, okay. I've got... Well, I think in the room first. I've got Angela first, then yourself, Mike.
Thanks, Chair. I don't like lots of double yellow lines, but they're not there so that we can get lots of money for people parking on them. They're usually put down for public safety and for smooth running of vehicles, vehicular traffic. That particular area is a nightmare. It's very poor for pedestrians. If you went round there in the evening, well, you'd say, I'm not going down here again. I'd rather park a mile away and walk, because that's how bad it is. Unfortunately, we can't legislate for poor performance, poor parking, etc. So you do the next best thing. The 100-odd people who didn't reply, usually, if you're bothered, you reply. If you think, oh, fair enough, people don't. That's the way it usually works. So those 100 people aren't, or we don't agree with it, but we can't be bothered writing in. Those 100 properties, that haven't written in, probably haven't got a problem. There is a real big issue in that area. I know it's getting worse and worse. And I don't like removing. I know the disabled bays are used by the church, but if you park a car in them, try and get by.
Okay, Mike.
Thanks. I was going to say I support Mike on this, but then I realised that there's 3 of us, and 2 of them are saying different things. So I'm going to support what Councillor Whiting said. I think it's the most sensible way forward. He's indicated he has a lot of concern raised with him, so I think his way forward is a pragmatic way, and I'll be happy to second him.
Right. I haven't got any others that have indicated. We've got a proposal that was proposed and seconded by Angela, and now we've got...
You haven't got a proposal. Sorry, Chair. You haven't got a proposal because in the same way as you can't vote if you're not in the room, you can't actually propose and second a motion if you're not physically in the room.
Sorry, you are correct.
Point of order, no, it has been confirmed, but as this is not decision-making but a recommending body, we can, on those online members can take part and recommend and vote.
If you were here at the beginning, I did confirm, and it's been confirmed by Democratic Services before, that you need to attend to vote. Now that's been ratified by Democratic Services several times now. So you do have to be here to vote and to propose. Sorry about that. Right. In which case, I have a proposal on the floor from Angela and Karen. Those in favour? 3, 4, 5. Those against? 1.
Sorry, Mike, I tried.
Thanks, Mike.
Right. Right, moving on to agenda item 9. Martin, are you going to to go into bat on this one?
Thank you, Chair. I haven't been to JTB for a long time, so nice to be here. So this item, I wasn't here for the previous JTB, but it was discussed and a motion was put forward for approval to Policy and Resources under the minutes. We then subsequently took a report to the Policy and Resources Committee, given that the motion committed the implementation of the pedestrianisation scheme, and subsequently after that, Joanne Johnson, who had been leading on the pedestrianisation scheme, had further information come through from KCC. The other side of it was the consultation and the work to look at the scheme further. Was falling out of existing resources and budget. So we took the report to Policy and Resources Committee, and they've referred us back to the JTB. We've subsequently done some of what was asked for in the motion, which was to meet with the Faversham Town Council Working Group, and the report you see in front of you makes some recommendations. Now, we absolutely recognise that these recommendations for double yellow lines in there won't solve all of the issues for Faversham Town parking, but what the intention was to try and reduce the impact of some of the parking in the short term, whilst obviously either we await further advances in the technology that KCC are operating with their ANPR enforcement, or looking at alternatives to that. So we absolutely understand. So the appendix shows some of the detail of the yellow lines that we're proposing, and we are talking mainly about the Faversham Town Centre area. We absolutely recognise that further along Court Street doesn't have some of the protection that is being asked for, and the reason being is really the historic opposition to yellow lines in that area. When we painted them previously, we did it on cobbles. It looked awful. We completely understand that, and we're trying to avoid going into that situation again. KCC did similar markings up Preston Street recently. They've proved both effective in terms of enforcement and aesthetics. And so we are proposing in this report a very similar approach, using the brick pavers as opposed to the cobbles to paint the yellow lines. But we felt, given the history of the opposition to the yellow lines, we really needed that local buy-in from the working group, and pleased to say that we got that recently. So our proposal, we absolutely recognise that. In that working group, we did discuss a few other items. So, for instance, one of the reasons that we can't deliver the pedestrianisation scheme in full is because of blue badge issue, the quality impact assessment. What we have suggested we could do, there's an area of on-street parking opposite, I probably can't name companies, but there's an Italian restaurant there, opposite there. We talked about, could we convert a couple of those bays into disabled bays? So they are, again, it's all about trying to encourage. So whilst the yellow lines won't stop blue badge holders parking on them, for up to 3 hours, Mike, is it? 3 hours. We hope by providing some closer bays that discourages it a little bit. So we're talking about lots of things that we can do in the short term. It might work, it might not work, but I think it's about showing a stepped approach to trying to resolve it. So therefore, the recommendations are there, which is to proceed to formal traffic order consultation. Mike's probably got better wording than that, but go to formal consultation on the yellow lines that are shown in the appendix, and to not proceed with the implementation of the pedestrianisation scheme until such a time that the blue badge issue can be overcome. I'm happy to take questions between Mike and I.
Excellent. Did you want to add anything, Mike, before I go to members? Okay. Mr. Saunders.
I wanted to speak in support of the paper generally and its recommendations, but I have actually proposed a small amendment to recommendation 2, which I can come on and speak to in a moment, which I've submitted on Friday. So I think Billy will have the
Are you aware of
formal
that?
wording.
Yeah.
So I wanted to firstly thank officers for responding to the resolution that came to the last JTB, which I proposed, and for developing a proposal to tackle inappropriate parking in the town centre. And I also wanted to thank them for starting to consult with the town council's working group about ways forward. I think it will be key for that dialogue to carry on as the detailed work putting together a traffic order takes place. I think the proposal for yellow lining, which is made in recommendation 1, will have some impact on reducing parking in the area around the Guildhall and other bits immediately around the marketplace. And it will obviously create a better visual environment for visitors and a safer environment for pedestrians and wheelchair users and others, which is why I'm happy to support recommendation 1. I think there are weaknesses with it which have already been recognised by officers. It clearly is likely to displace current marketplace parking to the immediately adjacent area of Court Street. It's clearly still going to allow parking in the marketplace for those who are allowed to park on double yellow lines. And it doesn't do anything to discourage any driver who wants to use the marketplace and Preston Street as a shortcut when there's congestion elsewhere. Another thing to mention, which didn't come up in the meeting with the working group last week, was that market traders have also been feeding back to us that there are problems with cars being left in Court Street when they're setting up on market days, and if we could find a way of addressing that, hope that would be really helpful. But overall, I think the commitment to put in yellow lines and the commitment to have a dialogue over issues is really helpful, and I hope we can find a sensible way forward. In relation to recommendation 2, as I say, I have proposed an amendment which is to carry on saying that members are asked to agree not to proceed with the implementation of the Faversham Town Centre Road closure scheme, but which is saying that we should take the opportunity to review other options, and we need to do that in the context of resources, because I'm conscious that there are very limited financial resources and staff resources to do further work on this issue. I can accept that there's no immediate prospect of moving forward with the scheme, which we endorsed as a JTB in December 2022. I do find this quite disappointing and annoying, really, because despite the best efforts of officers, the council's ended up paying out for a consultancy proposal, which was probably undeliverable when it was written and which unfortunately remains undeliverable, both economically and technically, over 2 years later. But we are where we are. I think the recommendation, the reason I proposed an amendment is the recommendation as it stands reads as though there's nothing we can do about things now. We should just sit tight and hope that something magically arrives to unlock the current financial and technical blockages. And I think in reality, the JTB needs to be in a position to act a lot earlier if the current problems persist, and that's why I put forward the amendment. I hope the amendment is common sense. Basically, it's saying keep the current proposal on the table, but let's look at any other options that are available. And that could be looking at the area that the proposal covers, the times, the enforcement methods, other impact mitigations, and to see whether there might be other possibilities for improving the situation. Further options, future options, are both mentioned a number of times in the paper, but they seem to have dropped out of the recommendation. And I think it's worth bearing in mind that things have already changed over 2 years. There's been a clear shift in the time, from a time that the marketplace provides key services like banking and closed retail to more businesses like cafes and restaurants. And obviously the change in parking charges into the evening has resulted in an increase in nighttime parking in the marketplace and Court Street area. So I think it's just sensible to use the space and time that there is now to look at some other options and see whether any of them will help us move the situation further while we're waiting to see if the original proposal can be implemented.
Thank you for that. That was very complete. So what I gathered from that, you're happy to support the first recommendation. The second one, I'm not quite sure how you wanted to change it.
Could I ask?
Unless, I mean, the only thing I can think of is that this area is sort of kept within the Faversham Town Centre priority list to be reviewed as and when.
Can I, because I submitted a written amendment, can I ask Mr Attaway perhaps to read it out?
Yeah, I can read it. We published it on the website, but printers are down, so they couldn't print it out.
Oh, right. So could you read it out for everybody?
Yeah, put your mic on so they can hear.
Yeah, so the amendment reads, members are asked to agree not to proceed with the implementation of the current Faversham Town Centre scheme for the moment and to take the opportunity to review future options when resources allow.
Right. Okay, but that sounds fair enough. Right, I have speaking next Councillor Hook, then Harriet Perkins, and then Mike Baldock. Yeah. Mr. Hook.
Thank you very much, Chairman, and I also want to thank the officers for their time in this, because it's been a very long-running issue. When I first became a councillor 8 years ago, there was really heated debates at the Town Council about this, and it needs to move on. What did happen in the intervening period was that yellow lines were painted, but they've since faded away. So what you've got now around the Guildhall is the remains of an old yellow line, which looks really scruffy, and cars park there because the traffic wardens take the view, quite rightly, they can't enforce it now in its faded condition. And I think the point is true that yellow lines by themselves are a bit at odds with the heritage architecture of Marketplace, but actually a parade of cars parked around the Guildhall is an even bigger obstruction to being able to see the Guildhall and the open space that is very pleasant both night or day in the marketplace. And I agree very much with the point made by the officers that the different technique that KCC, I believe, have used up Preston Street is really good, painting it on the stone. I gather it took them quite a long time to hunt around for a paint that would adhere to the stone, but apparently it will, so that's good. And it's a thinner than normal yellow line and a less brash shade of yellow. So I think this is the least bad alternative, because it will take away the fact that this area is full of cars at night time and sometimes during the day as well. And every week on Facebook, the market traders have to put a post on at the moment saying, does anyone know who owns this car, because it's been left here when we're trying to set up the market. So these yellow lines will hopefully reduce or even do away with that problem. Disabled people is a concern, and when during COVID we had the town centre completely pedestrianised for that period, there were some people who were very upset. I had at least one very emotional call from an elderly person who said, I need to drive to my opticians in the town centre, and I can't get there without that. But these yellow lines won't interfere with that. I mean, the opticians is actually up Preston Street, and of course, as one of the officers rightly said, blue badge holders can park on the yellow line for 3 hours, which is long enough for most errands or appointments that one needs to do. So I'm very happy to see the yellow lines be restored. I think it's a step forward. The general town centre closure is and remains, and I think will remain, a controversial issue, but I thought many of the points that Julie made were well made, particularly the way the town centre is changing, much more of a cafe environment and a place that people will want to walk to and walk around, even more than people do already. So I'm very happy with the amendment. The blue badge exemption is an important issue, but just to I think rephrase it as Julian proposes, to reconsider it as resources become more available, which I think was approximately the wording, is fine, because I think it's implicit within that the ongoing question about disabled people is still something that we consider very carefully. So I'm very happy with the amendments as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Perkin.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you for letting me speak as a visiting member. Yeah, absolutely agree that thanks to the officers for putting the paper together. I think it's really helpful. It's also been really helpful to be able to speak to the public about something that lots of people are quite invested in. So that's been really handy. I also am supportive of Councillor Saunders' amendment to continue to look at it as things progress, and to look at where additional resources can come from. It won't be any surprise to officers or members within the chamber that this is something that I've campaigned on since 2020, when I had quite a battle on my hands, really, to be taken seriously that this was causing issues for disabled people within Faversham. And so it's validating for myself and for the people that campaigned against the physical closure of the town centre during lockdown, to read in 2.6 that the equality impact assessment would indicate that there'd be negative impacts. So that is one of the major reasons why we're not progressing forward with the scheme as is. And it's a shame, as Councillor Saunders said, that we spent quite a lot of money on looking at reports when that was in my view, was quite obvious from the get-go. But yes, the additional point I suppose I would raise is that, as Councillor Saunders says, there has been some discussion from the market traders about, ironically, about actually putting those yellow lines back in, despite the fact that there was lots of discussion about how negative they were on Court Street. So I don't know whether it would be worth, if we're going to go to a formal consultation, to include those within the reinstating of the lines, or whether that's even something that is possible at this point in the process, because I think it would be helpful for there to be that very public consultation with a number of key stakeholders to see whether the view of the previous opposition has changed any to those particular lines. Yeah, I think that's that's important. The other thing I think more broadly to consider around town centre parking is as Councillor Hook and Councillor Saunders have said, the changing demographics of businesses within the town centre. There is now probably a little bit more of a want for street space, so there are more cafes open, there are more pavement licences being approved, but Swale Borough Council obviously take the money from those pavement licences, but also take the lease of the market as well. So making sure that relationship continues to function effectively as the kind of changes in those businesses come about, I think would be an important step forward to consider between the town council and Swale Borough Council moving forward. But yeah, very happy. I mean, I can't support the proposals or the amendment, but I would if I could.
Thank you for that. Would you like to just tidy up on a few of the questions, and then I'll go to Mr. Baldock and to Karen.
Yeah, the main one, I think I've probably the report or my introduction covers most of them. The main one is the Court Street element. So the reason we're not including that within the formal consultation is because that area is fully cobbled. So there's no pavers for us to be able to paint the lines on. So we would only get the same result if you take a lining machine down there. It's going to look pretty atrocious if you do it. So short of quite a lot of capital investment by KCC to dig up a channel of cobbles and put down either tarmac or things. There's no real physical way that we can do that and successfully enforce against. So you can't not have the lines. If we do the lines, then obviously we go down the same row. So it was a real dilemma and is absolutely one of the weaknesses of the scheme, because we know that those they will now displace onto Court Street, but there's not an obvious way to get around that. So we absolutely understand that. This is about, sort of mini steps we're trying to protect one area, the main area around the Guildhall, and then work outwards from there as we can and as technology allows, or as opinions change in terms of what people want that space to look like.
Thank you for that. Mr. Baldock.
Yes, thanks, John. Mr. White. I'm a bit bemused as to why we're going down this route. And there are plenty of conservation areas that do not allow parking, but don't need yellow lines. You just designate it a no parking zone. And as long as you've got signs entering the area indicating it's a no parking zone, then there is no parking permitted anywhere within that designated area. And anybody who does park can be fined. The alternative, of course, is to allow parking at £100 a day. But I really think that we should be looking at designating it a no parking area. Loads of conservation areas do it. I think it's done in parts of Canterbury, and I know it's done in loads of Cornwall. Because you can't park anywhere in Cornwall, but they don't have yellow lines everywhere.
Well, thank you for that, Mr. Baldock. I dare say that would need probably another consultation, but I'll let officers answer that one.
I'm not sure I know the exact answer, so I'm going to have an attempt, but I might need Mike to come in, Mike Knowles to come in on that. So my understanding is that was looked at as part of the scheme and ruled out. I don't exactly know why it was ruled out. So
we'll hand over then.
Thank you, Chair. Regrettably, I've been here long enough to see that we did once have a zone which was for no parking, which did not require any yellow lines. This was changed a number of years ago because there was a desire to have some areas where parking was available at certain times. So in other words, through a single yellow line, and other areas where there was no parking at any time, which was the double yellow line. So because the zone was split into two separate parking restrictions, the previous dispensation that was agreed through the Department of Transport had to be removed because of the need to demonstrate to drivers which sections were double yellow lines and which sections were single yellow lines. But that was previously the case. The sign was large, to say the least, in the entrance to the town centre. If you look on some of the Google Street View images, and you've got 20 minutes to read the sign, it's War and Peace. But that was the reason why the parking zone was removed, and it reverted to single and double yellow lines. But yes, in a short summary, if it's a blanket restriction that covers a whole area, that can be done, to my knowledge, still through a dispensation from the Department for Transport, without the need for any yellow lines. But it does need to have signing, as you said, at the entry points. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for that.
Quickly come back to. I think the law changed about maybe five years ago, where you now have zones that, if you want to have parking in, then there are designated parking areas within the conservation area. So only those areas can they be allowed to park. It does seem to have moved on from the position that we were in previously, simply because MPs didn't like yellow lines in the conservation area and wanted to make it easier.
Did you want to comment on that, Mike?
Just briefly, yes, to say absolutely. The change to the Traffic Management Act stated that there was no specific requirement for yellow lines to be used. My understanding was that in areas where you had a selection of different waiting restrictions, you had to physically demonstrate where those restrictions were. So it could be through the use of yellow lines, with or without signage, I understand. But it could also be through other methods, such as a change to the surfacing in the road, which obviously would be an issue in a cobbled area. But there are certainly other options available through those the changes in legislation. But as I say, I believe you still need to demonstrate visibly to motorists where they can't park and what restrictions are in place. But yeah, there are certainly other options there available as well. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for that. And if I remember also correctly, the shopkeepers didn't like it because it was a blanket, no parking. So it went backwards and forwards with a very large contingent of shopkeepers that were up in arms because they didn't have people that were coming to the shops. So yeah, so the saga continued in Faversham. I think I must be as old as you in terms of seeing the parking issues come backwards and forwards. Anyway, I've got one last speaker, and that's Karen Watson.
Thank you, Chairman. So I'll be very brief, as I spoke on this item when it came to committee in December. The amendment to the second recommendation that Julian has put up, I would most definitely support. If no one has seconded that, I have no problem seconding that. This is something that we don't really want to vanish into the ether, and that's what I would worry about unless we agree with this amendment. Faversham is a very unique town. I absolutely love it. I have to declare I'm there every week. I was there for the market at the weekend. It is busy. It is full of people. Parking is of an absolute premium, and unless you know of little secret places to park, it is a nightmare. But we want to encourage people into Faversham because they need to see the heritage, the uniqueness of Faversham. With new businesses opening up all the time, especially around the Guildhall, we don't want those businesses to be stifled, so to speak. So I think it's a very difficult line we have to walk on this one. But yeah, as I said, my fear would be if we went with the recommendation 2 as it is now, it would get forgotten. No disrespect, but I think it would get put on the back burner and forgotten about. If we take the amendment that Julian's put up forward, then at least it's there and we've got it in our sights and we can see what we can do. As for the parking spaces opposite that nice Italian that I go to a lot, which is Ask, those parking spaces are of a premium as well. My husband's known for not wanting to pay for his parking and gets in there and does his hour there. So yeah, that could be a way of working it, but we do need to make sure that all of our community, whether they have a disability or not, are still able to come down and enjoy the delights of Faversham. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for that. And Martin, you'd like to just come back briefly and then we'll take the vote.
Yeah, it would be remiss of me not to say that whilst I absolutely support the fact that we need something to continue to look at it, that's a decision obviously that wider committees would need to make in terms of committing the resources to such a project. So whereas previously the works were funded, rightly or wrongly, as on the conversations tonight, were funded from certain pots, we would need the resource to obviously get the officer and the time and the budget in order to look at alternative options. So whilst this committee can obviously make that amendment, it would need to go forward to either policy and resources or put into a service plan or a corporate plan moving forward. So when we're talking about projects that we want to focus on for the next year, people just need to remember to include this one in it.
Excellent. Right, we'll put we've only got a proposed and seconded motion for the amended version 2. So unless anybody is contrary to that view, I'm going to take the vote on that. If so, everybody's clear? Yes? So we've got a proposer and we've got a seconder. Those in favour of the motion? There we go. And that's carried. Thank you very much. Right, moving on to item 11, Highways Works Programme. Now, as always, this is for information only, and those of us who should have read through this, if there are any particular issues, you can either contact Mr. Knowles or Mr. Castle in terms of progress on those items. I know in the past we've had quite a long discussion on some of these items, but they are generally ward-specific issues. So that's the way we're going to deal with that. And item 12, progress update report. Sorry, I should have actually asked officers, are there any updates to the report that you've had? This is item 11.
Not from me, but possibly Mike.
So there isn't, and the same from item 12. Nothing else. Right. Now there was an issue as regard that was brought up from the last meeting, and we were going to have a response from the cabinet member from Kent County Council as regards the automatic number plate reading cameras. We sent a list of sites to the cabinet member and officers. I did get a response, particularly for one on Shortlands Road, asking me for to fund a survey for, I think it was to the tune of around £8,000, to do a piece of work. Now, that's quite obviously ridiculous in terms of the number of years I've been a Kent County Councillor, and the amount of work and officer time that's actually been, and this is the same in other areas, been to sites. There is no further work that can be done by Kent County Council to stop vehicles driving the wrong way down a one-way street, apart from enforcement. And the only way we can enforce is with a automatic number camera. Now, have you got a response from the Cabinet member?
I haven't, because I work for Swale Borough Council, but the guys online may well.
Right.
May well.
Sorry.
It's Daniel, Chair,
Sorry.
the Highway Manager for Swale. I have tried my damn hardest to get you a response for today, following Billy's email that he kindly sent me over. Now, I've tried so hard with that particular team. Some of the team, unfortunately, are not in at the moment due to various reasons. They have assured me that a report is going to come back, ready to present back to you. But also, at the next JTB, someone will be present to answer any questions that anybody has going forward.
Right. And now the next JTB will be in the next civic year. So some of us who are retiring won't be here, and there'll be new people. So hopefully people, if that can be noted in the minutes that it comes back as a matter of urgency, that's what we'll have to do. Are there any other issues that anyone would like to bring up? That was the only one that I could think of. No? Are there any... I've got... is it Councillor Tutt? He's got a hand up.
Yeah, it is, Chairman. Thank you so much. It was just a really few bits of informative information, really. One is that the National Highways is again resurfacing from Brenley to Canterbury, and they only did this about 3 years ago. And it just seems that we ought to find out from them just why it went so badly wrong last time. Second thing is I've been asked again about rural lanes, and I know we pushed it back to KCC to come back at some stage with an update, but through yourself I'd appreciate another update from KCC, really, because people are still asking about them. And the last thing is that as a parish councillor, I received today a flyer about cameras that tell people their speed. Dunkirk had an issue with KCC about 4 or 5 years ago, where our sign was going wrong, and KCC said that they would supply a new one, but it would be £11,000. We told them at the time that we could get one supplied and installed for probably 3 or 4, and they said that they were the only ones allowed to put them up. So can I ask whether the JTB can request of Kent County Council an update on this policy, because it seems ridiculous, like your survey, Chairman, that we've got to pay £11,000 for a camera when I can get 2 of them for 4,500. So it's just trying to get some updates, please, would be much appreciated.
Thank you for that, Councillor Tutt. I'm sure that can be added to the list for answers from Kent County Council for next time. Thank you for that. Councillor Harrison, did you indicate?
I might have missed you saying we'll be taking it later, but were we going to get the verbal update on the highway improvement schemes on the 249 Key Street and Grovehurst Road projects, item 10, which you missed? Well,
Sorry, I did.
Jumped over it. I thought you were going to take it at the end, but I thought I'd just remind you.
Sorry, I did. Very much so. Thank you for that. Right. Agenda item 10. Have we got somebody online that can give a verbal update as regards the highway improvement schemes on the A249. Richard.
Yeah, good evening, Mr. Chairman. Richard Shelton, KCC Project Manager, delivering the Swale HIF schemes at Key Street and Grovehurst Road. It's a very quick update on where we're at, and I'll take some questions at the end. Grovehurst Road, we are continuing to carry out works on Swale Way and Grovehurst Road, both north and south. The main works on the A249, main traffic management has now been taken off and is effectively complete, although we will need to put some lane closures on to do some tie-ins of the slip roads further down the line. But we are there or thereabouts with that. The bridge is mainly complete, and we're just doing the resurfacing across the bridge now. I suppose the focus now is on the traffic management arrangements of Swale Way and Grovehurst Road. It is a very complex and constantly changing set of traffic management layouts that we're having there. So I don't intend to go into any detail other than to say that we do send out a regular newsletter weekly if we are making traffic management changes, and there is a drop-in on site to share the up and coming traffic management proposals. With regard to Grovehurst, we are having a few challenges. As you can understand, it's a fairly complex site there. We're trying to work around existing traffic and utilities. We are having some issues with moving utilities around and keeping them live and working around them. So that is having a little bit of an impact on the programme of Grovehurst Road. We're still aiming to complete in the summer, but I think we were saying early summer originally. We're now probably going to be a bit later summer. I suppose it's what you deem to be substantially complete. The closer we get to completing, the more lanes we'll have, and we'll just be doing moving traffic around while we set up the traffic signals, etc. So I think that's really where we're at on Grovehurst Road. One of the other issues that I know has been reported to us is we had a lorry turning in Lloyd Drive that should never have got down Lloyd Drive, and there were an incident with that lorry hitting a few cars. We've taken that on board, and we've increased the additional signing to enforce drivers to tell them where the diversion route really goes. But again, when you've got lorry drivers with who think they can find their own way better than following signs, these things are going to happen, unfortunately. So I think that's a very, very quick update on Grovehurst Road. Since the last JTB, we've started Key Street. We had a public exhibition in Bobbing Village Hall in December. The work started early January, mid-January. The nature of the works we're taking, I'm not going to call it piecemeal, but planned and managed. There's a lot of concern from Streetworks and from the local people about potential congestion through Key Street. So we have intentionally prolonged the programme to work in smaller areas to keep traffic free-flowing as much as we possibly can without having traffic lights and road closures on. We will need them later in the project when we get a bit further down and need to do all the resurfacing, but certainly for the next month or two, we are just literally working in the verges and keeping traffic moving past us. Key Street, because of the piecemeal way in which we're operating, Key Street will go on through to the end of November. But again, we will carry on to continue to issue newsletters and inform the public of what the traffic management changes are in that processes. The only issue we're really getting on Key Street at the moment is I need the Section 6 agreement with National Highways. They're being very slow in signing up to the Section 6 agreement, which is the one that allows KCC to work on National Highways land. So we'll continue to work on the KCC network until such time as that's in place. Hopefully we'll get that sorted out in the next few weeks, but it is a challenge for us if I don't get that in place very soon. So that's really just a very quick update where we're at. I'm quite happy to take any particular questions. It was a very quick overview.
Yeah, thank you for that, Richard. I've got a hand up. I think it's Tony. Tony, do you have a question?
Yes, thank you, John. Just a quick question. As a Milton Regis Ward councillor, at the moment we've got the closure at the moment, haven't we, with a lot of traffic being diverted through Milton. I believe this commenced last week. If I heard you correctly, the scheme is roughly, what, 2 or 3 months behind? Can you give us an update on that again?
Yeah, we're looking at the programme to fit within with all the utilities, but the general message is yes, we are running behind. I think we've previously said we're going to finish June, July. That's now looking like August, September.
By the chair, I'll just quickly come back. So when's this latest road closure going to be lifted, which we've got at the present time?
Can I come back with you on that with the newsletter? I don't have the specifics on that particular road closure. I should have brought it here, but everything's changing on a fairly regular basis, and I need to get closer to that information. So I'll come back and let you know when that road closure is due to be lifted.
Okay, no problem. Just come to me on my Swale, obviously, email address. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Baldock.
Thanks, John. On the Key Street runner, I mean, the plan is to close off, somewhat ludicrously in my opinion, but anyway, to close off the existing slip road onto the 249 and force all the traffic down Chestnut Street to this new roundabout. I don't see any work on the new slip road from the Tudor Rose roundabout, even starting. Do we have any time scale for when that part of the project is actually going to happen? Because I can't see it happening. No,
we've not started there yet. As I say, we are working in a slightly piecemeal, doing one area at a time. It's partly in coordination with the Streetworks team. We're very sensitive about the more significant traffic management we currently have at Growthurst Road, so we are treading very carefully down through there. The works to the slip road are due to start either later this month or early next. The challenge I can't do anything on that slip road until I get the Section 6 agreement with National Highways. The Section 6 agreement, as I say, is the agreement that allows KCC to work on the National Highway network. We've got the agreement drafted, and it's just getting signed off by legal, and I've been trying for the last 18 months to get this in place, and it always comes down to the wire. It should never do, but it does, and we're kicking National Highways as hard as we can to try and get that sorted. What we'll then do is, once we've got that dates firmed up, we'll come back and give everyone a longer programme of the works over the next 3-4 months.
But you obviously can't close off the existing slip road until a new one's built. And
no,
that
correct.
Seems quite a large project, but doesn't even seem to have got started yet.
Yeah, no, well, it's only a very short section. There's only a few weeks worth of work in actually building the new link from the roundabout onto the existing slip road. And there is supposed to be a temporary connection onto the existing slip road. They haven't got any TTROs in place for shutting the slip road just at the moment. And obviously they would need that to be firmed up and confirmed. So we are talking with the DBFO, the Design and Build Sheppey Route, or Sheppey Route, or what their equivalent is now, and we're getting those all booked in. So at the moment, our focus is on Key Street and getting the junctions that we can, the approaches to the roundabout that we can get resolved, and then we need to get on and do the improvements to Chestnut Street, and then we can get on and do the works to the slip road. We need to do Chestnut Street before we go and close the slip road, otherwise we're basically diverting all the traffic down Chestnut Street whilst we're trying to build it. So Chestnut Street, we've got the footpath to widen and move on to the other side and create the footway cycleway. So those works need to be done before we can close the existing slip road there.
Glad to hear it.
Right, thank you for that, Richard. I haven't got any... Oh, yes, I do. I have Mr. Carnell.
I'd just like to thank Richard for the newsletters. I get them regular and I send them out on social media, so at least we know what's going on. But we've had quite a few people turn down Lloyd's because they don't want to go that extra yard down to turn around the roundabout. So there is a sign there, but it could be a bit bigger. But then again, they still take the wrong road. So.
Yeah, people take a chance, don't
Yeah.
they? That's
Thank
the
you.
trouble.
Anyway, thank you, Richard, for that newsletter.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, thanks for that. One question for me. I presume the utilities are still aware of the major works that are happening at Grovehurst and Key Street, and there aren't any sort of there isn't any pressure from the house builders, particularly around Key Street, etc., to dig up the A2, etc., and cause chaos.
With regard to Key Street, the answer is we are working very closely with our Streetworks coordinator. It's one of the reasons why I can't give a full programme of works over the next year, because we are working with the Streetworks coordinator to build in any of these emergency works or other works that may crop up. So, as I say, we're trying to do it in a minimalist way, certainly with traffic management, which isn't the most cost-effective way, but it does keep the traffic management, the traffic moving. So we are working with him on any of the other utility requirements that may crop up from time to time.
Yeah, well, thank you for that. I'm just flagging it up because I do know that the gas pipeline that travels along the A2 there isn't exactly the best.
It's a significant risk on the project, and our Streetworks coordinators are very sensitive to that issue.
Right, thank you. Right, I have no further questions, so thank you very much for everybody for attending. The next meeting will be the 14th of May, so it'll be a new civic year with new Kent County councillors. So thank you all for attending, and happy electioneering. Bye, everybody.
Cheers, John.